All right, it is 7 o'clock. I will call this meeting to order. Janet, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Trupiano. Here. Councilmember Tillman.
Here.
Councilmember Cloven.
I'm here.
Vice Mayor Diaz.
Yes.
Mayor Juan.
I am here. All right, now on to the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, next we move on to public comment on non-agenda items. If there's anyone in the audience or online that has a comment on something not on the agenda, now is your time to speak.
Mayor Juan, I have not received any speaker cards, and at this time, I do not have any hands raised via Zoom.
Okay, then I will close public comment and move on to the consent calendar. Is there anything that anyone would like to pull from consent?
I do.
Okay, which one?
Items D and
D is in Delta?
Delta, the liability claim,
Okay.
and I, the investment policy.
Okay, excellent. All right, so maybe we can, if we want to discuss those now, we can do that, or we can go ahead and exhaust the other items first. That may be a better course of action, so let's do that. So we will exclude items D and I, and take public comment on the consent calendar. If there's anyone that has any comment on the consent calendar, feel free. Janet?
Mayor Juan, I do not have any speaker cards, and I do not have any hands raised on Zoom.
Okay, close public comment on the consent calendar, and I would entertain a motion for all items excluding items D and I.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent calendar without items, what is it, E?
D,
Oh, D and I.
yeah, Delta Igloo.
Second.
All right, Janet, if you would call the roll.
Councilmember Trupiano.
Yes.
Councilmember Tillman.
Aye.
Councilmember Cloven.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Diaz.
Yes.
Mayor Juan.
Aye. All right, and so we will bring it back for questions on item D and I. You want to do them separately?
Sure.
All right.
I think D might be pretty quick. I just wanted, for transparency, I wanted to understand what the rationale was for the rejection. I only saw pictures in there, and it was on MPA's recommendation. Can you give a little bit more color?
Sure, happy to answer that, Councilmember Tillman. The claimant alleges that it was a city-owned catch basin that flooded her property. It is not city-owned, it's privately owned, so hence the recommendation to deny the claim.
Thank you. And then I'll go ahead and move up, unless you want to go, you want to do, approve them together?
No, yeah, we'll do it together.
Okay.
Any other discussion on item D? We good? Okay.
Do we need to open up public comment if people have questions about that one? Okay, good. Okay, so then I just wanted to ask a couple questions about the investment policy statement. Kudos for finally bringing this back. I don't see,
Miss.
oh, there she is. Hi there, good evening. For bringing this back, I know we had a couple of conversations about it when I was on the Budget and Audit Committee, but I do want to ask a couple clarifying questions. The first one is on page 5 of the document, and I don't have the PDF open, so I can try to find it for the public. Give me 1 second. I can't get my computer to work.
I think it's page 59 of the PDF.
Possibly. I don't even have the PDF open right now, but I have my notes, so
Okay.
give me 1 second. I think it references the finance director. I'm sorry, it references the treasurer in that last paragraph. And I'm sorry that I don't have mine up, but I think it should be finance director, because above that, we've given the finance director guidance to run the investment policy statement. And now we're referring to the treasurer again. So I just think we need to make that catch and fix that one.
Is that under here?
Thank you.
Is it? It's not a
right
touch
here.
screen.
Go up here.
On page 4? No, it's probably right down here. It's probably the sentence right here.
Right there, yes.
Okay.
So it reads,
So that's the that is the paragraph after section VII subsection I. And then there's a paragraph that reads, "For all other recommended investment of funds by the city treasurer and the city manager, the city council shall adopt the individual authorized instrument by resolution at a regular public meeting thereof." So we should probably add the finance director there as an item. I think for consistency, we do reference the city treasurer in other areas, but we also include the finance director as well. So I think that should probably be appended to that one section that would address that.
I think that should be fine. And then I'm trying to pull up the other one. I believe it's page 69 of the full document. And in that one, I just,
This is the red line doc part?
yes.
Okay.
And it's under the liquidity section.
If you want us to-
Thank you, yes, because I'm just trying to go for my notes, which are truncated. Okay, so it reads,
It's small.
it reads that the fund shall remain sufficiently liquid to meet all operating requirements that may be reasonably anticipated. But we don't give a time frame. What is staff recommending for reasonably anticipated? Are we thinking 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, 18 months? Do we want to put a timeline around that, a time frame around that?
I need to make this larger.
For that one, that we did not, it's basically, the liquidity is based on the cash flow of the needs of the city. So we haven't really put in the specific timeline because it's based on the cash flow and then the cash needed as part of the operation of the city.
Yeah,
So
I think that was left intentionally non-specific because the liquidity needs could be variable, and we didn't want to be tied to a certain time frame if the needs were different. So, and that's kind of left up to staff to determine that.
Okay, I'm just thinking of what's happened in recent weeks and months with all of the other financial institutions. And so I know we're saying we want to be liquid. Are we saying that we want to have, let me read it again.
I made it much larger.
Thank you. Thank you. Do we think that we want to have 6 months' worth of cash flow on hand, like operating cash on hand? That's my question.
Oh.
Do we want to have a limit, like a time frame around that, instead of just keeping it open?
I think that's what something that I've been meaning to get into, really make the assessment of the city's cash flow, what we need. So my goal is to keep at least the 6 months worth of the operation cash in our hands as the part of the liquidity. But that's something that it's on my list of things to do. So I'm trying to do the cash flow analysis and then see how much of the reserve that we should keep for the 6 months of operations.
Okay.
And then any of those cash, the liquidity, the investments that we have has if we need the additional cash, we can actually contact the investments, the consultants, and then those will be converted into cash within a very short period of time.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions about that piece? Because I'm going to keep going. Okay, good. And then to dovetail off of what you just said, I know we have UBS. Has staff given any consideration to, I know it's not a managed account or it's not an actively managed account, and I know we can afford an active manager, but do we have any concern about keeping it with one investment manager, given everything that's happened recently?
Right, so I can't really speak for what happened in the past, but I know that currently UBS is handling pretty much of the 90% of our investment portfolios with the UBS. So I have been approached by the other investments, the brokers that actually could. So that might be something that I would like to look into in moving forward. So, I mean, I'm getting a lot of the inquiries from the other investments.
Okay. And I know, for example, I'm just thinking about the recent, like Silicon Valley Bank, et cetera, right? They're being absorbed by other institutions, that's great. But if there is a need that we do have as a city within that time frame while that's happening, I just want us to be mindful of that. So I'll wait for you to come back with another report.
Absolutely. And then
to give to the full
UBS is
council.
actually very good in terms of the staying on top of those. And then they're kind of giving us the guideline and recommendations that we will not be impacted by those, the current climate, what's happening in the markets.
Good. And then when will we get our quarterly investment statement from them?
Next, the Budget and Audit Committee meeting, that's where we're scheduled to bring back on the quarterly. So I'm a little behind on that one because I was catching up. So that's coming up on the next.
Angeline, before you got here, you should have anticipated all this stuff and had it ready for us. Just kidding.
I should have, yes.
I'm just kidding. Okay, great. Thank you. That was it.
Okay. Are there any other questions on this item? Okay. Then I would entertain a motion for items D and I on the consent calendar.
I will make a motion for us to approve items D and I on the consent calendar.
With
Seconded.
with the added language on the finance director for the section
Correct.
referenced.
With the added language on section, I believe it was VII.
Under authorized investments,
you.
the last paragraph.
Thank you.
And
Second as amended.
we have a second. Janet, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Trupiano?
Yes.
Councilmember Tillman?
Aye.
Councilmember Cloven?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Diaz?
Yes.
Mayor Juan?
Aye. And with that, that passes. Sorry. Next is item 5, recognitions and presentations. These are informational only. There's several items to recognize in the month of May. Law Day is May 1st. Cinco de Mayo is May 5th. Armed Services Day, May 15th. Peace Officers Memorial Day and Police Week, May 15th. Asian Pacific Heritage Month in May, and Jewish American Heritage Month in May. Next is item 6, city reports from our city manager.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council members. Just a couple of things to report. First of all, I received a report from Climatech that our loan application with the CEC, the California Energy Commission, is moving forward. They asked for some additional information on our energy savings, which is actually being increased from what we brought to you, which is a positive. And we're looking for them to hear it in the month of July. So that's the quickest they're going to be able to get to it, but we'll be tracking that for you all. Also, the playground equipment up at Clayton Community Park should be completed by the end of next week. They've been waiting for one piece of equipment to come in and be delivered and finish the pour-in-place mat. So that will be completed so we can take the fence down and folks will be able to utilize that area up there. Our new city manager, Brett Pravola, will be starting next Monday on the 15th. And he's excited about coming on board. And so that means that this will be my last city council meeting with you all, but it's been a pleasure serving you in the city of Clayton for the past 3 months. So thank you for the opportunity.
I just want to say thank you very much for the time you spent. I know it hasn't been that long, but I think I'm very grateful, and I think the council is grateful that you were willing and able to come in, lend your years of expertise and experience to help us out in this time. So that is very much appreciated. And just the way that you've shepherded so many processes or projects over this time, it's just been very helpful. So I really appreciate the work that you've done.
Thank you, Ron. It's been a wonderful experience working with you.
You will be missed, but we have your number.
All right. Thank you. There are no public hearings, so we move on to item 8, action items. First is item A. This is adopt updated city council guidelines and procedures. Ron, if you would like to kick us off.
Certainly. Thank you, Mayor and members of the City Council. So this item had been requested back in December of 22 by Councilmember Tillman, and then again in March of 2023 twice by Councilmember Cloven, that the council guidelines and procedures related to specifically requests for future agenda items being discussed in the public prior to being placed on an agenda come back to this city council for reconsideration. Upon that request, Mayor Juan's taken a shot at making some modifications and revisions to this. Our city attorney has reviewed those revisions, and I summarized them in the staff report. One item that I wanted to highlight that I failed to request be deleted, which was a Brown Act concern of the city attorney, is item 8G of our original document, and it states that council may contact department heads or the city manager to be briefed on any subcommittee work. And it's item 8F in the attachment 3, which is the revised version of the guidelines and procedures. And so the request would be that council would delete item 8F in the final document that you have in attachment 3 in addition. And so the other items are considering things, for example, in section A, council's not required to inform the city clerk when they will be out of town. Section C, that the subcommittee memos will no longer be sent on an interim basis to update the city council members on issues, options, and progress. Public meetings, there's been an item that's added that states that the city council members who request an item be placed on a future agenda provide a written description to the city manager and the mayor for inclusion into future agenda reports. And also that 3 items related to formation and agendas, tabling, continuing, or refusing to act on agenda items have been removed. Also, item 15 of public meetings states that if a council member wants a vote reconsidered, they will follow Rosenberg's Rules of Order instead of the previously referenced Standard Code of Parliamentary Procedures. Special meetings, it makes the clarification that in addition to the mayor, a majority of the city council may also call for a special meeting. It also references city election year in section M, that how the business is to be conducted in the introduction of council candidates at council meetings. That's been removed from the document. And finally, members of the commissions and committees, it references city council requesting input from department heads and the city manager and ad hoc committees in conducting interviews and making recommendations. That's been removed as well. So the track changes has them in totality, and then the clean version, which is attachment 3, compiles everything. So hopefully that's easier to read. So if you have any questions, I'm available. Our city attorney is also available to answer. Thank you.
And I would just add, before we start discussion, that were questions that the reference to Rosenberg's rules, I think that was on recommendation or suggestion from our city attorney. And we had a separate discussion, and I would strike that modification because I'm not, and I don't think that was what is originally requested as part of the agenda item. So it's kind of a new introduction. I didn't want to pollute the discussion, as well as our municipal code specifically references Robert's rules. So I don't think that we can make a change via guidelines. So, so for that one, I don't know what page it's on, but for that one item, I would strike the reference to Rosenberg's rules, but all other recommendations from our attorney, I think, are solid and consistent with Brown Act stuff. So, and so that's as Mr. Blanc pointed out, I had put together this draft, and I think both Councilmember Cloven and Tillman requested various things to bring back. So this is the opportunity to talk about that. And if there are questions for staff.
I got this document in front of me with several questions and marks on it, and I'll just go through them one at a time as it is. I've actually extracted it as its own document. I'm using the red line document only, so if you don't mind, just some thoughts. Item C, number, what is now G, there's a statement here that the council shall review the performance of citizen committees no less frequency than every 6 months. To my knowledge, the only citizen committee we have is the TLC. It doesn't really make sense to have that particular item since we just don't review citizen committees. So that's one of those things that you could just, is that really necessary to have that in there and push us to that? Or if we're going to have that in there, let's make a conscious decision to actually review citizens committees every 6 months. In this particular case, since I think the only citizen committee we have is actually TLC, and we have a council member who is a liaison to that, it seems redundant and not necessary. So I would just strike item G, or CG at this point. It's a thought process. We can go talk about each item, or I could just keep going on. I think that's.
I think this is probably a question section, and then we'll take public comment, and then we'll.
Awesome. I've got lots of comments. Then I'll just hold off my questions then.
What, you want to ask your questions now, right?
I mean, my question is that necessary? I mean, and I can go with each my, I mean, I've got lots of comments on this, and I can ask each question if it's what the logic is. I mean, for every single one of these, if we want to go that route, or
Yeah,
we
I think
hold off
this
the
is
discussion.
questions for staff. So if it's discussion amongst ourselves, then I think that's the next,
I have lots of questions which I'll ask of you in discussion, since you were the one who made the red lines in the first place.
Sure.
So I'll hold that off.
okay?
Oh, I see. Okay. I'm trying to figure out which version is better to look at, the red line version or, I guess in general, do we plan to come back with, it sounds like we're going to have additional edits since we're now, the mayor suggested that we pull the addition of adding or making that change to Rosenberg's rule, since there has to be Unicode updates, et cetera. That's what he just suggested a second ago. So will we, it sounds like we're going to need to do this again.
I think the mayor wanted to stay consistent with the Muni code so that we wouldn't have to do an amendment. And I
Okay.
did want to just point out that the existing guidelines reference the standard code of parliamentary procedure, which is not
It's not
Roberts.
rules.
So I would actually suggest you switch it to Roberts to be consistent with the Muni code. And then in the future, if you want to switch to Rosenberg's, we can deal with that later. But I think just to keep consistency, I would prefer to switch it to that, to Rosenberg, or not Rosenberg's, excuse me, Robert's rules, which is consistent with the Muni code.
Okay, and I'm not going to be able to pull it up yet because, but the reference to tabling, striking tabling agenda items, I get that the mayor can answer this question when we have the discussion, but why would we remove that as an option? Why would staff, I don't know if the word is agree or recommend that that's appropriate?
So which item is that? I'm sorry.
So it was in your synopsis in the staff. I can't find the line item in the actual, so I'm just going to go to your, it is under Section I, Public Meetings, and it reads, Item 1, Agendas, A, Formation, B, C, D, E, relating to tabling, continuing, or refusing to act on agenda items have been removed.
So I could fill in here a little bit.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
I have the page. I propose to strike these items because they seem redundant. And all of these things can still be done. It's not that they can't be done, it's that we don't need it spelled out because the rules of procedure would control and it would describe the process for all of these things. So it's not necessary to itemize them out. It doesn't remove the ability to do any of these things. All of these things can be done, but for the sake of brevity and conciseness, it was not necessary to include these specific items because within the rules of procedure, there's so many other items, and including some but not others gives the impression that that's the only things you can do. But to the extent that we follow these certain parliamentary or Robert's rules, then all of these things are extant anyways, and so there's no need to explicitly include them. So that was the rationale for.
Fair, okay, thank you. And then, if we're excluding, now I'm up in section C, council interaction and communication. Council subcommittees, subcommittee memos will no longer be sent on an interim basis to update council members on issues, options, and progress. Where will that be happening on the agendas for council meetings? This is a question for staff.
So I think the idea behind that, if I'm correct, is it was a Brown Act issue where the subcommittee report out would happen from the council member, not necessarily from the staff member who was at the meeting.
And
Say
then
that
I
one more
think-
time.
Oh, I was just going to say, yes, you're right. It was a Brown Act concern that we didn't want subcommittees reporting out their actions outside of a public meeting. So I think
Okay.
to address your comment that it would probably need to be agendized for a full city council meeting, so then the subcommittee could report out, this is where we are and this is what we've been doing.
Okay, so we're not trying to say that they will no longer be reporting out anything to us, which is how I read this. But they can still come to council meetings and report out. Thank you.
We just didn't want it happening outside of a council meeting.
Okay, thank you. And then for we're back in section I, public meetings again. Agendas A, formation 3 has been itemized, which states that council members who request that an item be placed on a future agenda shall provide a written description to the city manager and mayor for inclusion into a future agenda report, and that staff does not prepare detailed reports until directed by the city manager and/or city council as a whole. Makes a lot of sense. Can staff give a little bit more detail on how detailed that needs to be, or how detailed you'd like that?
So I think the idea is that the item would be brought forward at a city council meeting for consideration at a future agenda. There would be a cover memo from the city manager that would say, council member, in this case Tillman, has requested this item, see attached. There would be a description of what you would like for the city council to consider as a group, which would provide enough detail for them before the meeting to understand what the requested action would be. And then at the city council meeting, it would be presented by the council member for consideration by the council. And my thought is if the majority of the city council were then to say, this is something we want to move forward, then they would make that direction, which would then be carried out by the city manager and the staff.
So the way that we do it now is at the end of the agenda, we state that we would like something put on a future agenda item, which is what we're going to discuss in another action item. Going forward, we're going to move to, and that comes back usually. Sometimes there's direction, if there's actual direction to take place. Sometimes we want to have a conversation about it at a future meeting. Are you saying that before staff will do any work? Well, let me understand what you're saying. Staff isn't necessarily doing any work now, are you? And if you are, please let me know. On bringing something back that requires additional staff time other than putting it on the agenda, that is time consuming. I'm trying to understand the need for a packet, I guess, from the council member for the discussion.
Yeah, and I would say, may I? I would say that the written thing is probably very brief, like a few sentences at most.
Okay.
And it's really just so that staff, the idea is that I think there's been some lack of clarity around the level of effort that staff would engage in to prepare the report that something has come back. And so this will allow staff to take the written comments from any council member and say, like, this is essentially it. We are presenting the idea as requested by a council member for discussion. And that's a very simple way that something could be agendized without burdening staff. And then only after given direction would they engage in the level of effort necessary to actually prepare a more robust staff report.
Okay, but in the description that you just gave, is the intent for the full majority of the council has to agree that it's going to come back and staff is going to work on it?
No.
I'm asking staff because that's what our city manager just alluded to. So I just want clarity.
Well, it's the city manager and the mayor that are
Yes.
reviewing it. And I guess my question is similar. Is there going to be a deadline before each, is it Thursday before the following Tuesday council meeting, or arbitrarily because we don't know when it's going to be agendized? And then is an email sufficient to be just emailing the mayor and the city manager and saying, I'd like to request this and here's why and here's some background information? Is that what we're?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think it doesn't really change anything that's already existing. It just adds clarity around how the process actually works so that it can be, it makes it easier on staff to understand what they're
Being asked to
responsible
do.
for. And it makes the planning process easier as well.
Okay, that's fair. And then will all 5 of us be doing that? Will the mayor be doing that as well? Okay, because there's been a few items that have made it onto the
Yeah,
agendas that
written
wasn't
summary-
happening. Okay.
A written summary is, from the requester,
Okay,
is, I think, appropriate.
okay. Let's see. Somebody else can jump in if they have other questions now that I've started asking some. If not, I'll keep going.
So is there no longer a requirement to speak about an agenda item orally at the end of the meeting to get in order to put it on the agenda?
That was never a requirement.
Then I would, in our discussion, I would like to add that announcement about what you'd like put on the agenda, then you follow it up with a written request to the mayor and city manager, and then we can proceed with it further. So I'd like to have any agenda item that is suggested be announced orally at the end of the meeting during our council reports. It makes sense to let the public and our fellow council members know what's on your mind, at least orally, before it gets submitted out verbally in a small version to the mayor and the city manager.
Okay, let's see if I have any other. Did anyone else have any questions? Okay. I think that was it for the questions that I have. The rest is discussion.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, then I will open up this item for public comment. If there's anyone that has a comment on 8A.
I do actually. I put a card for 8C, but then I make a. Can I?
Feel free.
Yeah, my name is.
But you, please turn on the mic.
There you go. My name is Bassam Altwal, 33 Molino Drive. Just one comment. I just noticed that the council members are asking staff questions and staff are not being able to answer those questions, but the mayor is answering the questions. So who writes the staff reports? You do or the mayor does? Thank you.
Yeah, I would just briefly say that it's a team effort. So, Janet, do we have any other comments?
Yes. Terry, as I promote you to panelist, if you can please unmute your microphone, you'll have 3 minutes to speak.
Hi, guys. Just a quick comment. I expressed some of the same concerns that Bassam has just raised here. In listening to the questions being asked by the council members, the fact that Councilmember Cloven was going back and forth between is this discussion or questions and not able to ask the questions because the staff report was written by the mayor. I'm kind of questioning here a call to order or about why is the mayor writing the staff reports and why was this not made public to folks in the agenda beforehand, that it says staff report written by the city manager, that this is actually written by the mayor instead. Appreciate if the council may address that point. Thank you.
Staff report was written by staff. I did the red line on the procedures. Is there any other comments?
Mayor Juan, I do not have any other hands raised on this item.
Okay, then I will close public comment and bring it back for discussion. Peter, you said you had items to raise.
Thanks, I appreciate that. And getting back to that item G regarding citizen committees and frequency of every 6 months, I don't think we've ever done that, at least during my term in the last couple of years. And so that item seems superfluous, so why not remove it? That's item numbers C, G. Going down further, as I scroll through, item number H, under citizen complaints, number 7, there's a comment that says, city council should not go hands-on mode when complaints occur. issues will be referred to the appropriate staff who will be given adequate time to respond. And I would just say, will be referred to appropriate staff and the city manager notified, who will give city adequate time to respond. I don't want the council members giving direction to staff directly. It should go through the city manager. And so just somewhere in that statement that the city manager should be notified accordingly, so that we're not directing staff personally. That is under citizen complaints, H, on number 7. I just wanted to make sure that we're going through the city manager specifically and not directing staff directly. The next item is public meetings under agendas, formation. Item number 2, it says any member of the council may request an item to be replaced on future agenda by contacting the mayor or making a request during the council items section of the regular meeting. I'm very strong in my opinion that we should, as council members, let fellow council know what your intention is for a future item to be agendized, and not just go through the mayor privately or through the city manager privately. That way, the other council members are not ambushed by things that show up on the agenda. And therefore, we have an item at the end of every meeting that says specifically items for future consideration, and it is transparent and appropriate that each of us, if we have something we want to have put on the agenda, state what that is very specifically during that time in the meeting, and then go through the procedure we just spoke about of sending the mayor and the city manager a paragraph about what that item is so that it can be evaluated for future consideration, whether or not staff time is worthwhile to spend effort on it. I just don't want the city council ambushed by something a single council member has on their mind and it just shows up on the agenda. I think that the public should know about every item well before it gets put on the agenda. And that's a way we do it is that item in the account. So that's pretty clear. The next thing with that is once we've made that item request on the agenda verbally, and then we put in the paragraph or short statement about what that item is, I think there should be a time frame by which it should be addressed by the mayor. Let's call it 3 months. Doesn't mean it has to come back to the agenda, but it has to be at least addressed in council. I acknowledge that you made this request back on this date, and we'll get to that, what we're working on. I'm being considerate of our staff time pressures and what they're working on. But I think Mayor Juan has done a good job with this particular item number 8B, which is coming up later. I appreciate that tremendously. But again, bringing it up every 3 months, these are the things that have been requested, and having it revisited every 3 quarterly, and just acknowledge that it's on the list and where it is from a priority standpoint on staff time is very important. So I just want to acknowledge a time frame for acknowledgement of request and what the status is. I think that's appropriate. I can keep going through all my items, but is there anybody who has a comment about those particular thoughts in this discussion, please?
I just have a quick question on something you said, the item before last. So number 2 is any member of the council may request an item to be placed on a future agenda by contacting the mayor or by making a request during the council item section of the regular meeting agenda. So is that okay?
I would say get rid of the word or and put the word and. Because you and. By contacting the mayor and by making the request during the council meeting section of the agenda. So I want to make it mandatory that if you want something on the agenda, you have to state it during the meeting, at the end of the meeting, during the appropriate time.
Yeah, so I take your point that you want to make that a requirement. I guess, so obviously I wrote it, so I disagree. I think that our past practice is sufficient, and I would maintain with the modifications that I've drafted here. So I don't think that it's really efficient, and sometimes there are many things that don't get requested ahead of time, and it's kind of how it's gone, and that to me seems to work the best. So I'm happy to disagree.
I'm going to jump in here now, if I may. So I seem to recall that this was a sticking point about 2 years ago when the word mayor's prerogative was used quite a bit by you and the vice mayor. So those words aren't written on the page, but it sounds like that's what you're using here, and that you are overruling what other council members are saying in their request to make this more transparent on how things are getting on the calendar. I know that that was something that was important to you and to all of us when we were elected by the residents. And if we're going to be sending things directly to the mayor, which is what a lot of residents said they had an issue with because it wasn't transparent, it seems like things are happening behind closed doors. This is exactly behind closed doors instead of it being transparent. So in making it and, it's letting everybody that knows, that's, you know, the people who are actually watching or who review the video see what we're requesting. And then I think you don't run into the issue that happened when I was out of the country in March, where you put something on the calendar or on the agenda that hadn't come before any of us prior to the agenda coming out that Friday. And so I think that's what he's saying, that
No, I
Councilmember
understand.
Cloven, and you disagree, but then if you still disagree, I'm still going to say, this looks backdoorish, and I don't think that that's really what you want. But if you do, feel free to let everybody know that's listening that that's how you feel.
Yeah, I'm comfortable with the way it's written.
Awesome.
And I'm not, and I just want to be very clear, I'm not comfortable with things coming onto the agenda the public does not know about and all council don't know about in advance. If I see something that shows up on the agenda on a Friday afternoon that I have no clue about, because it hasn't been announced publicly, I think that has some significant challenges, both to the public and to us as council. And this happened recently, we know, relative to what happened with CBCA announcement. And it was a surprise to all of us, except for some. So, I mean, it was a surprise to some of us. And that shouldn't be a surprise. That should have been something that was announced. This is what I'd like to put on the agenda in the future. And so people are duly notified that this is going to be the case, instead of being surprised on a Friday afternoon.
So just so I understand, we're trying to make it a requirement that you have to do both.
Mm-hmm.
And so part of that is so we can hear what each other wants on the agenda. And so the public knows what we're requesting
Absolutely.
is on the agenda.
Yeah, and I think the rules that, you know, that are required for noticing, we follow the rules for noticing, and that the way that things get on the agenda, I mean, even if you look at today's agenda, there are several things on there that weren't prior called for. And that's the way that, you know, with the way that staff time is and trying to make the various agenda items fit into some logical order with the meetings that we have. This is how it has been. This is no different than what we've done for the past, as far back as I can remember, and it seems to work just fine. Now, you mentioned mayor's prerogative. I don't think that's a thing. It's not defined. But what this does do is it clearly establishes the role, and one of the roles is setting the agenda. And so, to me, this clarifies that, and it's really essentially the only significant change here would be the addition of the written component, which I think is useful for staff. And so the reason why I want to add that is to make it easier on staff.
So why would we even put in the end of our agenda items for future consideration then? Why don't you just strike that completely from the agenda? It seems to me that that's an appropriate place for us as council and anybody on the city council, and we're all equal members of the council, to put out what we'd like so the public can see what that is. I'm just saying it just seems not, this is the way it's been done. And it seems appropriate to be transparent with our residents and with each other.
And then the only other, I know we're beating a dead horse on this one, but by making it, changing the or, striking the or and replacing it with and, is the items that are on this agenda, and on every agenda that we have that are routine in nature because they have certain reporting requirement, deadlines, et cetera, of course, we don't have to state those ad nauseum every council meeting. But if it's a new item or request, some complaint that you heard from a resident, some issue that you've heard out in the community that you've seen, that all of us need to be aware of, it's a little shady to not change this so that all of us have to do it, and it isn't just being snuck onto the agenda. And of course, we're adhering, because that's what our staff does, and they're great at it, we're adhering to the 72-hour rule. We've been doing that. No one's saying that that's not what's happening. What we're saying is if there's a new item that isn't routine in nature that you want to bring forward, be transparent. And it sounds like you're comfortable not being transparent about that.
I wouldn't
am not.
characterize it that way, but
That's what it is.
I'm comfortable with the way that it's written.
It's not transparent.
Were there other comments that you had?
More?
Feel free.
So item, under public meetings, there was an item that was removed. Item D was if a member is ill or away for a big or personal agenda item, the item may be tabled at the member's request. That was previously in our policy, council policy, and that's been redlined and removed. I think that needs to be put back in. Again, this goes hand in hand with our experience recently with CBCA, and that was brought to the council with a council member out of town. And if an item this large and of this much value to our community has been put on the agenda with somebody not present, and they didn't have the opportunity to ask for that to be put on tabled at a future meeting, unless there's some incredible urgency associated with that item of an emergency nature, it makes no sense to remove this. It seems, again, not appropriate, and I'd like to have that put back into the policy accordingly.
So just a clarification, this isn't a policy, this is a guideline.
I would like to see it put back into the guidelines, please.
And the reason why this was stricken is the same reason why the first comments that I mentioned were stricken, because it is redundant. This is a discretionary statement, and this can all, I'm trying to find the exact item here because I lost my page. But the way that it is phrased is this may be done and it may be requested. That as written, that can still be done even if this is stricken. That's always the case. And whether or not, it's not a rule that it is done, but it is something that is essentially just saying that here's an option that you can consider, but it doesn't require any actual action, and so therefore it is superfluous.
Then I would like to have that changed to will be stricken at the member's request.
Yeah, I would disagree as well, because I think that having control over being able to remove items from the agenda isn't appropriate. The business of the council continues even if someone is absent. It could be the case that someone is absent a lot. I mean, we've had that happen before. And in that case, then that absent member would be able to just remove all the items from the agenda. That's not effective. So I would disagree as well.
We have an
please continue.
We have an action that happened recently that could have been tabled because of the absence of a member of our council. And I have a challenge with the way that happened, and I want to have due consideration and respect for each other as we have our needs for personal time. Occasionally we'll miss a meeting. And if an item of significance to the community that is not urgent in nature is going to be put on the agenda, it takes, I believe it should be, the council member is going to be missing that, should be able to make a request, and it should be at least heard that be tabled until they get back. I think that was poorly done, and I just want to state that, and that's why I think this should be put back in our policy.
Yeah, that's, like I said, removing that section doesn't change the fact that a request can always be made. So that remains unchanged in the status quo.
Not if the agenda item is put without notice on a Friday and the person's already gone.
Okay.
And they can't make changes to be there. I mean, this goes all hand in hand with respect for each other as council members and treating each other with the kindness, respect that is associated with our character traits of do the right thing. And I'm just being very clear that we've gotten away from that. And I would like to have that replaced back into our policy. Go ahead.
Oh, so I just have a question. So in tabling, council may move to table any agenda item for future. So does that mean it is automatically removed from the future agenda? If I request on Thursday night or Friday that I see something I don't like, I can move, how can I move to remove that from the agenda?
I guess the point is, if you're not going to be there on Tuesday night, and there is something that's of significance on the agenda that is of large interest to a vast majority of the community, and you've already said you're not going to be there, I think it's appropriate you should be able to make the request. Can we table it to the next meeting so I can be a part of the conversation?
So
And it's not tabling it
How would that
indefinitely.
be
It's just
done,
table
though?
until the next meeting when you're there.
but how would that be done? That's what I guess I'm not clear on. How would that be done? By sending an email to everyone?
Say, I would request, and when it comes up for discussion at the meeting on Tuesday night, this has been requested to be tabled at Councilmember Trupiano's request. And then we can
And that doesn't mean that would happen, right? That could also mean that the, I don't know, mayor and city manager override that. I guess that's where I'm confused.
Once it's on the agenda, then the request for tabling would be presented to the quorum that is present, and then they would decide whether or not to proceed.
I see.
And that,
Okay.
that can still be done right now. There's no change to that.
Okay.
That is the status quo.
Thanks.
Okay, I'll go on to my next item. I still feel strongly about that. Same item, public meeting is going down to item number, where are we? Item number 4. The mayor works with the city manager to decide how much information needs to be disseminated at the meeting based on the item. I'm just curious why, and council and audience needs. Why was that removed? Why was that registered?
Again, it's superfluous.
It just seemed like it was a more complete statement. It didn't seem really necessary to be removed. I just throwing it out there. There was another comment on public comment number 7, to be directed by the mayor and council, not to staff and audience. Why was that removed?
That's not an enforceable requirement.
In general, I'm just making that statement that since this is not policy, we're encouraging public to address us specifically and not our staff, and not turn around and talk to the audience behind them. It doesn't hurt to have that in there. We're encouraging public comment to be addressed to us as the council, and it doesn't make sense to remove that in my eyes since it's there. Is there a reason why it needs to be removed?
I gave the reason. It's unenforceable, and it's actually, it goes contrary to the nature of public comment. Public comment is for the public to make any comment they want in the manner they see fit. Now, I think that there's some limited rules around what can be curtailed, like if someone were to be threatening or obscene in some way, then you could probably make an argument. But if they want to just sing a song, there's really no ability to limit that, and that's by design. So I would say trying to put guide rails on things, we're not their parents. They can make whatever comment they want, and that's the nature of free speech.
That is true, but again, this gives some guidelines, what we're trying, give some guidelines, please. It gives them guidelines. It doesn't hurt to have it in there, so I don't know why it should be stricken.
I generally just struck things that were superfluous.
And there was one other item that I wanted to jump onto. Hang on, let me find it. Pardon me, it was item number 20, which talks about digital and electronic communications. I have seen instances on both the Planning Commission and here in our own city council where members of our council are receiving text, emails, or other communication from public citizens during the meeting. We were hired, for lack of a better term, elected by our citizens to represent them with our own conscience and our own minds in our best capabilities during this time as council members at the dais. We were not placed here to be a mouthpiece for somebody sitting at their desk watching the meetings who can feed you questions to ask during the council or planning commission meetings. I want to observe this, and I would like to put some guardrails on it and suggest that this be enforced by future meetings where council members and planning commissioners are not allowed to be connected to the Wi-Fi and or have their phones available to them. They are only allowed to have hard copy or a digital copy that is not connected, so that there is no outside interference with your independent thought. And I'd like to discuss how that might work, even if it's in a city-provided laptop where you can just take a USB drive or a thumb drive and put your preloaded documents into that so you can see all the information you need during the meeting. I would like to really curtail the ability of both the Planning Commission and the council from being able to talk or communicate with outside residents unless the residents show up and actually speak during public comment. And that's my take, and I feel very strongly about that we need to address that need as soon as possible.
May I ask you one other question, kind of going back to that, and there's so many redlined items here, but the citizens, I think it was a citizens council or citizens committee, and you said there was no need for it because we don't really have those. Would that affect our fiscal sustainability? Blah, blah, blah.
I mean, there's a few. I think
Committee.
the TLC for sure. I mean, I kind of consider the Planning Commission
Right.
that would fall under those auspices.
Okay.
If the quorum ever forms with the Fiscal Sustainability Committee, that would also be the
Yeah,
case.
I just hate it.
And then to the extent that we form any other citizen committee, it would just generally apply.
Okay. I think it's kind of important to keep that in. Okay, that's it.
Let's see, I had some of the same ones that Peter did, but I've already jumped in on a few of those. But on the last one that you just mentioned, I mean, it's obvious that people are up here using their phones. and replying and texting, et cetera, which I think is it's problematic. So if staff has any recommendations on, or even is there even, I don't know if there's legalities around it, but I think that we need to have people up here thinking on their own instead of actually receiving electronic communications from folks feeding them information. So either come prepared or don't, but I think we should all be speaking our own mind when we're sitting on the dais. For the mayor selection, my favorite one. Letter F. I'm fine with the way it is, but I'm glad that we're having this discussion now because I know that there were a lot of people in the community who were super angry on how the rotation happened in 2020 and in 2021. And there was a lot of misinformation, disinformation really, on how that was supposed to proceed. And so everyone can see in writing that it's not lockstep, which is exactly what I kept saying, that it's at the discretion of the council members and there needs to be a majority. And if this council doesn't want that, we need to have a conversation about how we want to do it. Since other local electeds in other cities that are nearby do it different ways, they actually have in their procedures, based on when you were elected and what place you came in, that's how you rotate in. So if we want to get away from all the animus that's in this small community, that's one option that we have. Or we keep it the same way, and everybody needs to be truthful and honest with residents to let them know this is how this is done. It's majority says who's going to be elected and chosen by this group on who gets to be mayor. So I'm glad that this is still in here, and I'm curious what the rest of my fellow council members, how you guys feel about that. Let's discuss. Anybody?
Well, I would agree with you that there were a lot of angry people in 2020 and 2021. And I do think that, I look to what other communities do as well. I know that you've spoken to other folks, and generally the vice mayor does become the mayor, but it is up to the majority of council members to make that decision. So I guess we can have some discussion around that. Anybody else want to?
Well, I wrote it,
Leanne?
so I'm comfortable with the way it's written.
Okay, and then I do have a question about, and now this red line version. So it is item number H, citizen complaints. It's now number 7. Council should not go to a hands-on mode when complaints occur. Is this what you were referring to earlier on? Will not go on a hands-on mode when complaints occur. Issues will be referred to appropriate staff who will be given adequate time to respond. If a council, and then the new 8 reads, if a council member wants action based on a citizen complaint, they should go through the city manager's office to ensure proper handling. And I would like to ensure that the issues will be referred to appropriate staff seems inappropriate to me, since I think that we should be referring everything to the city manager. Or if you're going to address staff, for them to take care of something that's of an immediate need, copying the city manager, since I know they're all inundated with workload. So I just want to be sure that we aren't stepping on the city manager's toes with those 2 items. And that's H, citizens complaints 7 and 8. So.
I would say appropriate staff is, by definition, is the city manager. And I think that we all can exercise judgment in that case. And again, this is not a change from the existing document. The only change I made was to the pronouns.
Sure.
So this just retains the status quo, and I think appropriate staff means who you or anyone in their judgment, believes to be the appropriate staff, and in almost all cases, that is the city manager. And I think that's essentially how it's gone. I don't think there's an area that we need to reinvent the wheel. And so to the extent that there were areas that did not seem like they needed changing, I was comfortable just leaving it as is with the modifications to overall formatting.
It's okay to be wrong and make changes. So I would suggest that we change this to actually read city manager instead of appropriate staff, because even though we're sitting here and that might have been how we did it in the last 2 years, we won't be here forever. And there could be a time where someone could read this and take it as gospel and think, okay, well, I can just go to a department head and get something done. So in forward thinking, I think that appropriate staff should be changed to city manager. That would be my suggestion. And it's okay to make changes on the fly.
And I do want to go back to future agenda items one more time and see if, I don't know, maybe we can come to a consensus on this. I'm probably 99.9% of the time going to publicize my future agenda items, but I would not want it to preclude me from being able to email or notify the mayor and city manager if something were to come up after a meeting that I would like to see on the next meeting agenda. So I think it's okay to keep the option. I'm personally always going to publicly announce my future agenda items unless I, A, forget something, or somebody in the community reminds me about something that needs to be on a future agenda. So I'd like to keep that option and not know that I have to follow an and, that I have an or, but I'm personally going to commit to publicly announcing my agenda items. I just want to say that.
I'm very comfortable with the way it has been portrayed, gotten things on the agenda, even over the past 3 or 4 years. Any item that I had requested to go on to the agenda got on the agenda at some future date. So I'm not sure, quite frankly, how what's being suggested is not transparent. It is very transparent. We have a section on the agenda that says, what future item would you like to bring up? You put it on, it gets put in the queue for the appropriate time when staff is available to respond to it. And I can't think of anything I would change, quite frankly. Thank you.
I'll jump in here. Can I?
Go ahead.
The specific example is exactly what Councilmember Cloven's talking about. So when the discussion item came up for the CBCA fees to be discussed in March, that was never previously mentioned at a prior city council meeting. It just appeared on the agenda because the mayor put it on there. That's what we're referring to. Items such as that, especially ones that'll be controversial like that, and maybe that was clearly by design, is because I won't speak for him. It seemed like it was by design so that there wouldn't be any conversation within the community before it happened, and the community was blindsided. That's what we're trying to avoid. Those are the instances of things like that getting on the agenda without anyone mentioning it. I will give him credit in that in prior years, you can see from the list that we're going to talk about in the next agenda items coming up that the mayor has, when he was council member, did the exact same thing all of us do. At the end of a meeting, he would state what he would like to bring forward to a future council meeting. All of us were aware. He would either direct staff on what exactly it was he was looking for. So he was very transparent in doing that. It was this particular instance when he was not, and we're trying to avoid that in the future. That's why we're asking for the clarification and the change.
And Jim, I concur with you. I mean, it's worked well in the past. We've been at a point where at the end of the meeting or even before, we would request items we put on the agenda, and the mayor would do their best, looking at all the agendas and looking at all the workload that the staff has to figure out when the best time to bring it back for council discussion. I mean, that's been the case, and you've done a good job with that. The question is not ambushing the council and or the community with something that is of controversy, so that we can actually have a chance to know that this is a thought process. And that's what I'm saying, is that let's be open with it. Especially, I mean, the mayor has the prerogative. If there is something that's urgent and important that we need to talk with on a Tuesday night, and he puts it on the agenda on Friday, he say, this is urgent, it's either financial or it's a health and safety issue, heck yeah, put that on the agenda on a Friday night. But that was not urgent or from a financial or a public health and safety issue. So why not announce that in advance so people are aware of that? And that's what I mean, there are times where the mayor uses the prerogative to help the city in an emergency way, but that was not the case. And that's what I'm suggesting, is that the normal order of business is at the end of the meeting. I'd like to put this on the agenda in the future.
Okay. Were there other items that you wanted to raise? Are there any other items to discuss here?
Just to tag on to my item number 20 in the electronic communication as an example. There was a meeting about a month and a half ago where we started the meeting and 3 of us got text and communication from our citizens saying that the TV feed was down and we were 5 minutes into the meeting. So we should never have received communication from our residents while we're at the dais saying that the TV's down, or the feed was down. That was an example of when we sit down here, we are acting independently, representing our residents as a council member. We should not be communicating with them during the meeting. And that's what I'm saying. It's in our policy. That should not be allowed. That gives somebody the ability to talk to you during the meeting without standing at the public podium during public comment. That should not be allowed.
Well, and I would agree with you 100%, and I am not communicating with anyone in the audience. I had my phone, I will speak just for myself, out here because I have my meetings that I've attended in the past several weeks in my notes, and that I did get a pop-up, I think you did too, Councilmember Tillman, and it said, you sound like you're underwater. And so otherwise, if it didn't pop up and I didn't have, my phone is in my purse right now, I wouldn't have even have known that. So maybe in that case, it was kind of a good thing because our audience couldn't hear us. But I agree, we should not be monitoring texts and emails or communication during a meeting. I agree 100%.
Yeah, I'll just say, I have, like many of us, I have a bunch of little kids. I'm not going to not be reachable. That's a family concern. So, like, there's no way in hell that I'll not be able to look and see if my kids say there's an emergency. I'm at it. I'm going to go. And that's just that's the part of modern life. I agree. We're not. We don't. The guidelines are consistent in what we're supposed to be doing, and it's really up to each individual to police themselves, and that's what we're expected to do.
And the very last thing I had on the council guidelines, and maybe because there are so many track changes and several different versions, but I think there's some formatting. So maybe once all the track changes are accepted, I think 18 should be 19 and 20 should be 19. So
It does the.
I'm just like a
I
little
know.
bit, old
The
English major, never dies. Yeah.
The renumeration, I believe, happens automatically when you do the acceptance, and then you have to do it once over again, just in case.
So I guess the question is, for any of the suggested changes that we made or asked, are we going to discuss those so staff knows which ones to change? Or are you saying we're not changing anything at all and you want us to accept this as it is?
Well, I mean, I think here we have the ability to have a motion to update the guidelines, and we can give staff direction on what those updates should be. I would suggest, I think, what you mentioned on appropriate staff and saying that to city manager seems fine. So that would be item H7. And so I would replace the word appropriate staff to city manager. And then I would also make the change to conform, instead of the Rosenberg's or rules of parliamentary procedure, I would have that consistent with the Muni Code to have Robert's rules and worded appropriately to reference. Other than that, I think I'm comfortable with all other items as it's drafted.
And I would again request that we change item number 2 to the word and then throw in a time frame for revisiting the list of requests
Okay.
after 3 months.
Yeah, I disagree with you on that. I think that change is unnecessary. So, we can vote,
Mayor?
unless you have other comments to make.
There was one additional request I'd like for you to consider, please. It was deleting item
Yes.
8F.
For deleting item 8F consistent with Brown Act things.
Correct.
I think that is also an appropriate change. And so with that, I would make a motion to accept with those changes, not to accept, to update the council guidelines with the changes, those 3 changes noted. And I would look for a second.
Second.
Janet, would you call a roll?
Councilmember Trupiano,
Yes?
Councilmember Tillman,
No.
Councilmember Cloven,
No.
Vice Mayor Diaz,
Yes.
Mayor Juan.
Aye. Okay, and with that, that passes. We move on to item 8B. This is the status of City Council future agenda item requests. If you would like to kick us off.
Sure, thank you, Mayor and City Council members. This is an item for the City Council to consider a list of future item requests. This list began on December the 15th, 2020, and it's a list of all requests that staff has recorded through the city clerk's office and that have been acted upon and are also still awaiting action. And so staff's request is that just that the council would review this list, determine if there's any items that they may want to remove from the list at this point, and just be aware that this is the list that staff has on hand and is using in order to consider along with the mayor for future agenda items. Thank you.
Any questions for staff? Nope, okay. So this is essentially a inventory of what's been requested. So I think one of the goals of this was to determine if these are still operative. Like, if there are some, I think, that have been addressed or are addressed as part of other things. So there may be items that we want to strike, and then or modify or give a little bit more context to them. So that's really what this is, and just a readout of what is currently on deck from our requests. I thought it was it fit well with the rest of the items we were discussing tonight. So if there are no questions, I will open up this item for public comment. If there's any comment on this item, now is the time. There are approximately 30-ish items here, give or take. Janet, do we have anyone online that has comment?
Mayor Juan, I did not receive any speaker cards, and there are no hands raised. One hand went up and back down on Zoom, so we'll give him a second. And I have no hands raised on this item.
Okay, then I will close public comment and bring it back for discussion. There isn't any specific ask of this. It's just to review and make sure that we are still, so I guess the way that I would couch this is for any item that has your name next to it, if you are comfortable with the request as it is documented here, then I think no action needed. If you want to modify this in any way, then we should talk about, or we could talk about doing that. So,
Greetings. I have an item back from July of 2021 for an environmental action plan for the city of Clayton. I still feel very strongly about being an example for our youth and showing environmental responsibility. I am familiar with environmental action plans. I've reviewed Piedmont's, Moraga's, and Lafayette's. They are pretty significant documents that go into both water, energy, and our carbon footprint and evaluating what that looks like. There is a lot of effort going into that, not only from putting together the plan, but also the monitoring and evaluation of that on an annual basis. We don't have the staff resources to do that, nor do we have the finances available to put that plan together. I'm partially satisfied with our initial steps with environmental efforts relative to Climatech. I saw them do the presentation of environmental action plans last year at the Mayor's Conference down in Long Beach. I was very impressed with them, spoke with Raina about that, and she took that on and bringing them on board. Congratulations to our former city manager, and I really appreciate her efforts as well as the efforts of bringing us to the point we are now. But to spend the money on putting together an environmental action plan to reduce our carbon footprint, which basically is associated with encouraging mass transportation and biking and pedestrian uses in our city, so that we do so. It's too much effort, too much cost, and I haven't heard enough of citizen response to say this is a priority to us. So while it is a priority to me, it doesn't make sense to keep this on the agenda right now. So we're going to respectfully ask that item to be removed from my request.
Okay, thank you for that. I think the GAD stuff is probably going to be addressed, it says it right here, at the 5/16 meeting, so that's great. Hopefully that is as awesome as the anticipation around it, so that would be great. I think I've had a lot of conversation around the Diamond Terrace activity, and I think that could probably be pulled from this one as well, just because of the nature of the request and what the city's role is. So I'd probably strike that one as well. And I think that was the ones that I had. Any other modifications?
It seems a little redundant now since we've had this recent conversation on page 3, item number 2. There's a city council. I requested a city council procedure for addition of future items to the agenda, discussed at prior meetings. We placed on the agenda. We just did that, and I'm not happy with the result, but you can pull that from the list as well.
And when we say pull, we're just going to drop them down to the other section where it shows what's been completed, or?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. So, for example, the item that Councilmember Cloven asked for, the environmental action plan for Clayton, we can drop to the bottom and just say pulled by council member to just address what had happened.
And can I just ask a point of clarification to Councilmember Cloven? Are you saying you don't want us to even look at it later? Like to put a timeline to say, I don't know, revisit in a year?
If I get a number of residents saying we'd like you to
Okay.
bring this back on, right now, I haven't heard that clamor for that.
Okay.
But if I hear residents saying that they'd like us to revisit an environmental action plan and the expense associated with that, then I will bring it back at a future meeting.
Okay. Did you have any more? I'll jump in then. Oh, go ahead.
Okay.
Oh, okay. So then for mine, I would still like us, I know it says it's ongoing, so I still want us to keep on the closed captioning. That's item number 2 on the first page. For the food vendor trucks, I brought this up initially brought it up on 7 of 2021, and I brought it up again, I think later at a different meeting, so I want that one to stay on as well. And remind me again, are we just asking if we want these to, I'm not directing you to do anything just yet, but if I want you to, I would do exactly what we already discussed, which is put it in writing and let you know what I want that to look like, right?
Correct.
Okay, Then the polling city staff regarding the work relationship with city council, I will give a detailed description of what I would like that to look like. I've mentioned it now probably 3 times when I've been asked, so I will put it in writing so everybody's crystal clear. But I would like that to stay on.
Which one was that?
It is the second from the bottom.
Okay.
December 7th, 2021, poll of city staff regarding the working relationship with city council. For the November 15th, 2022, to consider a resolution in support of human rights in Iran. This was a request that Pinel's mayor at the time had requested at the mayor's conference last November. I can find that language and share that with everyone, and so I'll put that again in writing so everybody can see what that looks like, and if that is something we want to do. It's just a resolution that will be read out in November when that comes up again. So I'll put that one in writing. We just discussed, as it says, the May 5th, 2023 meeting, we just discussed the guidelines. I do want us to consider the CFD to fund additional officers. I talked about that a little bit briefly. I can't remember if that was in our goal-setting session, but we could talk about that as we're discussing our budget issues. And again, with all of these, I will put it more additional details. Also, the parcel tax to continue the parcel tax for the Trails and Landscape Committee. You will hear from the chair of that committee at the next meeting on the 16th. But this is something that needs to stay front and center so that we can be informed as a body on what's happening there. Traffic calming, yes, we discussed this, and it looks like that's coming back on the 16th. Fantastic. The play structure in Stranahan, we can keep that on there. I am meeting with the resident who did request that, so that I will get more information from her and the residents that she has been speaking to, and we'll bring that forward again with more details on how that looks. Nothing for staff to do yet. All right, so my April 4th, 2023, the update from the Trails and the TLC, I already discussed that. Update from the Concerts in the Grove Committee, I know that we did hear from them. I do want a little bit more color on the granularity of how much additional staff time is being used. In particular, I know that, and in fact, I asked Councilmember Trupiano this after the last meeting, in the update that she's going to give, if she can let us know, because I do know that there's more. Before it was Janet just receiving the funds, counting the money that was in the jugs that were passed around, and then putting it into the bank. I want to know if there is more staff time dedicated to the Concerts in the Grove now that it is a city-sponsored event, and I'm saying that in quotes because it was a little squishy before, and we had an entire group of folks who were actually running it that kind of blurred the lines because they were former council members and council members who also were part of the Concerts in the Grove Committee. Now that is solely only on the city, and we still have 2 council members who are on this subcommittee. I want to be sure that staff time is not how much staff time is being used for this. I want more detail because I know that they're pretty pressed for time in their daily schedules. Same with the 4th of July Parade Committee, since I know that's also falling on staff now that is, it used to be privately funded with sponsors from citizens. I want to know if that's still continuing and how much actual city staff time is being used to put that on, since that's completely separate from the CBCA, who puts on all the other festivals. And then in the review of special agreements, and then the amendment for the Clayton Municipal Code food truck regarding the vendors, I just spoke to that last piece. But for the special agreements, what I'm looking for is, and this is going to come up in the next item, so I'll go in more detail, but keep it on there and I'll speak to that then. And that's it.
And then really, my only thing that I don't know if we'll do this in goal setting or we'll do this at a future meeting, but I do want to still have more discussion around posting community events on the city website. And it's not really Mount Diablo Interpretive Association. I know that was one of my guest speakers presenting to us about the new visitor center at Mount Diablo State Park. But this is about things going on in town, like concerts, like art and wine festivals, like Oktoberfest, like events at the library. I think if we have something called a community calendar on our website, it shouldn't have council meetings and planning commission meetings. I think there could be maybe a municipal calendar and then a community events calendar. And also regarding concerts in the Grove, the staff time has been so extremely minimal because the committee has been doing all the work. So how do you want me to report that out? We just had a meeting a few weeks ago. I could send you notes on that, but I mean, invoicing, that's really all, and doing some Facebook posts for me because I don't have administrative privileges, but we talked about it this morning, like an hour of staff time or so. I mean, there's really,
But that's what I would like to know. If it's an hour, then it's an hour. But that's an hour more than what they were having to carve out to do something
No.
for this.
I think they've even had to do less, so.
I would like to know if that's accurate. Okay.
Okay. But I'd be happy to put a report together. I mean, it's not a problem. And I think that's it on my items. Diamond Terrace, you said we're not going to be
Yeah, I
discussing it
think-
at any more length.
Yeah, I think based on the nature of the item, it's probably outside the purview of what we are able to do.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, I think that provides, was there any more comment? Okay, so I think hopefully staff has enough direction there for that, so thank you for that. And we already took public comment on that one, so that item is closed. We'll move on to item 8C. This is, Councilmember Tillman, this is one of your requests. If either you would like to kick us off or you would like to kick us off, you can decide.
I'll briefly start this, Mayor and council members. On April the 4th, Councilmember Tillman requested that an item be placed on the agenda to discuss the review of special agreements. And so this is Councilmember Tillman's opportunity to provide more information on her request. I just wanted to mention also that the Budget and Audit Committee had requested that we provide information on contracts as part of the budget review. And so we provided information on March the 27th. There's more information being provided as that was a very quick download of what we had available at that time. And so I'm not sure if that's relative to what Councilmember Tillman's asking for, but she can go ahead and let us know. Thank you.
Sure. So, one, I appreciate the opportunity to expand on this since this was my ask. But I wasn't specifically only asking for nonprofits, which I think is what is mentioned in here. That's not the case. What I would like to see is all of the agreements, whether they're master agreements, contracts with various groups in town. And the goal is for us to have a full picture, which is what Councilmember Cloven has mentioned several times when we've been talking about fees, what to do with our ARPA funds, et cetera. And I know we're going to be having a fee discussion coming up in future meetings, but my goal is to have a clearer picture on who's getting waivers and what those look like, if they're a group, whether they're nonprofit or not. Examples, the Historical Society, the Garden Club, All Out Sports League, which we just approved their agreement last summer, and no one squawked at all about the fees that they're paying, because they're doing a service for the community. And there's a reason for this, because I don't want it to look like, which is what it seems, that the CBCA was singled out. We've heard that from several speakers who have come here within the last couple of months, and that is the feeling and perception that gives. And in some respects, it's kind of the reality since we didn't do this in totality. So to clear any of that confusion up, I would like to see the Clayton Valley Little League. What concessions are they being given, whether it's use of property at the park, storage facilities, All Out Sports Leagues and their fees, Historical Society, any waivers that all of these groups, the waivers are receiving, fees that they're paying. Those are just the ones off the top of my head, but that's what I'm looking for, not just nonprofits. I know that we did discuss the nonprofits in the earlier conversations earlier this year, but that is what I'm looking for. And I'd be happy to put that more in writing in detail if you need it, and even give you an expanded list of the groups, but that's what my request is.
Well, and even in the last budget and audit meeting, so we started with vendors, and that has to be expanded. We talked about consultants in the last one. We're hoping, right, for start dates, end dates, value, because a lot of the consultants, I want description, like what exactly service do they provide, so there's not a duplication of services. So we're hoping maybe not in May, but by June, when we get into budget workshop, Angeline, our finance director, will have all that information. So we'll include these, I guess, also.
Yeah, and the goal is to make sure, I know that we were waiting for the master fee schedule work to be done, which is what when I watched the video on the CBCA meeting, that was supposed to come back, I think, this month. So if we're going to need to do anything as far as renegotiating other people's contracts, I would like them to know well in advance, and we have to be able to have this full discussion and need to see all of them so that we can have those discussions and they're not blindsided like the CBCA was. And I think it just gives us ample time to actually provide them with the rationale on why we're doing it, if we're going to do it. And if we're not, we need to have that as well. So I just think that this gives us as a body an opportunity to discuss all of the waivers that we are doing for all of the entities. And I think that there was good reason why all of those were done. So that's my request.
Any other questions for staff? Okay, I'd open up this item for public comment. If there's anyone that wants to make public comment, now is your time. I have one speaker card. Mr. Otwal, you are up.
Thank you. Again, my name is Bassam Altwal from El Molino Drive, and I want to follow up. I got some information from the city regarding some temporary use permits, and I want to ask about one particular temporary use permit done by Mr. Diaz. For 4 years, 18, 19, 21, 22, Mr. Diaz has applied for a temporary use permit for the car show on each year for 5 items, like June 22nd, July 6th, July 20th, and August 3rd. And his fees were waived. And he did not apply. I'm anticipating the answer. It's not a city event, because if it's a city event, here's another temporary permit done by the city for a city event on the years of 15 and 16 and done by the city clerk and addressed to the city email address, clayton.california.us, while Mr. Diaz permits were addressed at Jim Diaz 2002 at packbill.net. It's a private event. He used city facilities, wear and tear, like Mr. Wan said about the CBCA, and used it to enhance his name in the community, like, I'm doing this. So I was wondering, it's most likely it's a conflict of interest, trying to show up what he's doing. And I was wondering, are you going to retroactively charge him for all the fees that he used for the wear and tear of the public items in the city? Is he going to be paying for it? And isn't it a conflict of interest for a city council member to run these kind of shows for public stunts? And that's all what I have, but I want to mention one other thing to Ms. Tropiano. I just heard what she said earlier. She's 100% wants transparent, but she then votes against transparency. So I wonder when she's going to grow a spine and stop being a puppet for the mayor and just vote on her own, not for somebody else. Thank you.
I would say retroactive fees are not permissible under the law.
Councilmember Cloven, Frank Gavidia, I am addressing you. I know that while you were in power, you didn't want it done that way, but there's this pesky thing called the First Amendment that gives me the absolute right to do so. Don't forget, I once defended it with my life. Now, the reason I am addressing you specifically, you are the one who brings up do the right thing, kindness, let's all be nice to each other. That's your friend over there. That's your kind friend. Tells her to grow a spine. That's a nice way to address a sitting council member. When are you going to tell your friends to do the right thing? There you go. He just did it for me. Thank you, council member.
Do we have any other public comment?
Mayor Juan, I have a hand that went up and went down. I'll give him just a moment. And I have no hands raised on this item.
Okay, then I will close public comment and move on to discussion. I would say I think this is a valuable exercise, and I think this is something that should be done through the Budget and Audit Committee, and I would recommend that we move it to there, as well as being taken up when staff time is available. So that would be my recommendation. I think that work is part and parcel of the overall process, and it is something that is actively in flight and will continue to do so. That would be my commentary. If you have anything else to share.
No, I'm totally fine with that. I don't want to bombard staff because I know that we're shorthand. I completely understand that. But I also don't want us to continue on with, I don't want us to finalize anything in regards to fees, et cetera, without looking at all of that in totality. And so I'm glad that that goes hand in hand, given the limited hours that staff does have. But it is also urgent. And before we sign off on our next budget, I think that has to happen. So yeah, thank you. Are you looking,
Okay.
is staff looking for
think-
any other action
I
other
don't
than
think
that?
you need a motion here.
Good, yeah, I don't think so either.
I think that provides sufficient direction. Am I correct in my assumption?
Yes, that's correct. We have clear direction. Thank you.
All right, excellent. All right, so unless there's any other comment, then I will close item 8C and move on to item 9, council items. This is limited to council requests for future meetings. Does anyone have anything that they would like to request?
I do. I just have one. Excuse me. I would like to ask staff to prepare a calendar of reporting requirements. And I'll give you a little more color on this ask, and I will also put it in writing. But what I'm looking for is I know that there are certain reporting requirements that you guys have, regulatory reporting requirements that staff has throughout the year. Council's not necessarily aware of those, nor are our residents on how busy certain times of the year can be. For example, stormwater reporting, just to throw that out there. It would be nice to be able to have a calendar of at least what months those happen in. That way we try to leave you guys alone as much as we can, but to the extent that you guys can put those out for us, that would be great, so we can leave you guys alone a little bit more. I think it will just give, especially because we have a new staff. Angeline just started in February. We have Brett coming on in a couple of weeks. It's a new staff, and I think it would behoove us to give them grace and realize that in addition to what we might perceive as their workload, they're also having to fill the gaps for not having an assistant to the city manager here. And a lot of those folks are taking on that additional workload, and I think that we should all see that picture. Thank you.
I would just add a little bit of color to that. That work, what you reference is already work that is in flight, and it's part of a larger effort for not just compliance requirements, but all major tasks. And so that's a project that is ongoing with staff.
When did somebody ask for that project, and what is that called?
It's not finalized yet, so it's a proposal that I'm going to bring forward at a later time. So, but I do think that it is something that is very worthwhile and valuable to have. And so, we're rolling around the edges on how that could look, and then when it coalesces, it'll come forward.
Okay.
Any other requests for future items?
And I don't know if this is appropriate for goal setting or a future agendized item, but I do want to explore the possibility of summer internships, bless you. I think that would add a lot of value to our staff. I do have a lot of experience with internships. We have.
We have a committee now.
We have a committee. And so I am meeting with our new city manager tomorrow, and I plan on discussing it with him, but I don't know if it's a possibility for a future agenda item to discuss it or goal-setting session. That's it.
Okay. All right, that concludes item 9, and moving on to item 10, council reports. Councilmember Trupiano, would you like to kick us off?
Sure. Mine is kind of short and sweet. Our Concerts in the Grove Committee did meet April 19th, and we finalized all of our details for logistics. Permitting has been completed. Sponsorships, marketing, advertising, and of course, our first concert is May 13th. If anybody wants to volunteer to help us during the concerts program, particularly collecting money, but we've got a new QR code, which is going to make scanning and donating super, super easy this year. Also, I participated along with Councilmember Cloven on a staff walk, which was very nice, and lunch from Canessa's provided by MPA, our insurance company. That was Friday, April 21st. I chaired the East Contra Costa County Habitat Conservancy Governing Board meeting held in Brentwood last Monday. We did finalize the financial audit report and some formatting for future meetings for their public advisory committees. They are going to keep a hybrid format, and I think we're going to have an August meeting here in our own council chambers. And our Budget and Audit Committee meeting met again last Monday, where we reviewed our fiscal year 2023-24. We were presented with a 5-year capital improvement project worksheet by our engineer, and the master fee schedule will not be for another couple of weeks. Hoping to review that before the next Budget and Audit Committee meeting in May. That's it.
Thank you, Councilmember Diaz.
Thank you. It was a rather busy week between now and the last city council meeting, but as Member Trupiano mentioned, on the 19th was the concert in the Grove ad hoc, which I attended. Then on the 20th, I attended the County Connection Board meeting, and things are moving along there very well. And in fact, the next day on the 21st, the CEO had a ride-along and basically to show off the capabilities of the County Connection to a number of leaders around the Bay Area, and it was well attended and well received. On Saturday, the 22nd, Clayton cleans up. I played second fiddle to Howard Geller at the barbecue stand. On the 24th, I attended the CERT meeting with the city manager. We hopefully clarified that, how we can move forward. I had a barbecue meeting on later that evening. Then on the 28th, Friday, we started the beginnings of the Art and Wine, which I participated in through Saturday and Sunday. On Friday, also, I had a meeting very extensively with the chief of police, going over a number of items relative to the future activities at the police department. Not the minimum was, or at least talking about the potential of adding an additional patrol vehicle now that costs are starting to rise, and Ford is intent on raising the cost of the vehicles in the future. And finally, this morning, had a meeting again with the city manager. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Mayor. All right, so since we last met, I attended the Mount Diablo Unified School District Anti-Bias, Anti-Racist Committee, where we discussed the school curriculum and ways to make learning more accessible to students and more accessible and equitable to all children, rather. There was also a presentation by district staff on these new proposals, and we discussed having more actionable items on future agendas since the last two meetings have been more informational. Also on that front for the school district, I received notification that Principal Fong will no longer be principal next year. So I wanted to share all of that with you guys. I don't have any other details other than the email that he sent to parents and staff. On the 22nd, my daughter Jordan and I participated in Clayton Cleans Up. I wanted to thank Councilmember Cloven again for all of his hard work and bringing this back, leading this effort and bringing this back to the community. We actually drove down to the Westwood location, I can't even speak, neighborhood, and cleaned up the area behind Safeway. And the only location that we couldn't reach because we couldn't get across the creek to it is right behind the Clayton Presbyterian Church. There's a lot of trash and debris. So if anybody has a service project, any Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, anyone that's got a service project that they need to do, or students who need service hours, the area on the church side of the creek behind Safeway needs some cleaning up. We quickly showered and cleaned up and went to Opportunity Junction's Imagine Gala, where I was one of the guests that was there. And I was delighted to be joined by about 6 other Clayton families, and that was supporting a great cause in our community. I met with our community development director, our city manager several times. I also have the privilege of hosting with my fellow counterpart here, Councilmember Cloven, for the continental breakfast for the vendors for the Art and Wine Festival. It was nice to meet a lot of people who had come from all over. One couple had come all the way from Ohio and taken 3 days to drive. Yes. Taken 3 days to drive here. I thought up until Sunday morning that the furthest was more people who were down in San Diego who had driven up. So people are coming from far and wide to attend our Art and Wine. And so that group led by our very own Sandy Johnson is to be commended on all the work that they put on. What else? Clayton Pride meetings, as we're gearing up, that will be on June 4th at 10 a.m., Sunday, June 4th. And a couple other meetings. We attended our first strategic safety and asset management plan subcommittee for the TLC. You will get more details on that when the board chair, the chair of that committee comes forward on May 16th. We have a TLC meeting on May 8th, if anyone would like to come join. That is at 6:30 p.m. here. And I also attended the MDUS school board meeting, and that's it. I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Holly. Attended the CVCA dinner on the 20th at Dever Hall. It was a great meeting to get together in a very tight space over there, very well attended. There were 2 requests for funds, one from the Clayton Pride, and CVCA granted funds towards the parade, and there was also a request for support from the high school football team for an equipment upgrade that they're going to be needing. Really enjoyed the staff walk on Friday the 21st. It was nice just to hang out with staff and just leisurely walk in a beautiful spring day, and then have lunch down at Canessa's and just hang out and be with them in a very casual setting. And I really appreciate the city manager for setting that up. Clayton Cleans Up was beyond what I expected. I was very, very pleased with the participation. I want to thank all of my fellow council members who were there, plus 3 planning commissioners. It was well attended by over 200 plus members of the community, and I'm looking forward to next year and making it bigger and better and bringing a little music to it. And again, I think the barbecue communal aspect of it, at the end of it, where we all just get together and just relax and enjoy being together, was what Clayton community is all about, and I just really enjoyed that. I'm a member of the Contra Costa County Hazardous Materials Commission as appointed by the Mayor's Conference, and I had 2 different meetings I was attending the past 2 weeks, and mostly reviewing legislation that's impacting our county. And the Art and Wine, Sandy Johnson and her crew did just a phenomenal job. It was an amazing weekend weather-wise. I really enjoyed the vendor breakfast and getting to meet the people who come here to sell their wares and celebrating them. We're the only one of the fairs out there that actually provides a breakfast to the vendors, and they really, really appreciate that. And working the ticket sales booth on Saturday afternoon was just exhausting. How much credit cards and cash we put through. It was a very successful event, and with that, I really appreciate it, and that's the end of my report.
Thank you. Along with Councilmember Tripiano, we had a really robust budget and audit committee meeting talking about the first pass of the budget. It was, I think there's a lot more work to be done, and that'll be ongoing. A lot of meetings with our city manager with the upcoming transition, and again, I appreciate all the work that you've done. Participate in Clayton Cleans Up, I think that was a wonderful event, and again, thank you for all the work that went into it. I imagine it was very consuming. So that was great, and I brought several of my kids had other events, but I was able to bring one of my kids out until he got laid out by the massive allergies that were going around, because that was a beautiful day and a lot of pollen. So that's great. And then I've had a few meetings with our incoming city manager, trying to acclimate him to what he will expect when he gets here. And I encourage everyone to do that. I think that's something that will help him transition. And that is the end of my report. So thank you very much. And that concludes item 10. Next, we have a closed session with a conference with labor negotiator. This is instructions to city designated labor negotiator, who is our interim city manager. And so I will request that the audience exit themselves. What's that? We're going to roll right into closed session. Yeah. So, well, actually, does anyone need a recess? We have to do public comment on this? Okay. Public comment on this closed session.
I think you should take the mic, Shannon.
Do we have public comment?
Mayor Juan, I did not receive any speaker cards, and I do not have any hands raised on Zoom.
Okay, then I will close public comment, and I will ask if anyone here or staff needs a brief recess. Okay. All right, well, thank you for attending, and we will come back to open session after we conclude. Are we good? Okay, we are good. All right, so we are returning from closed session. There are no reportable actions, and that concludes item 11. Item 12, oh wait, that is item 12, sorry, return to open session. And that brings us to adjournment, item 13. As of 10:08, meeting adjourned.